And from Taste to Tops, it's DrinkinAZ. I like that song, Duncan. You know that was the first song that MTV ever played? Video Killed the Radio Star? Video killed the radio star.
Who sings that?
That's the Buggles.
Yeah, let them sing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, ding-a-ling. All right, so we're here, and we are drinking beer and talking to Murthy Tata from QuantiPerm. Is that the name of your company?
That's right, QuantiPerm.
QuantiPerm, okay. And we've got this fantastic nitro system. Adam, a little bit up if you don't mind. Fantastic nitro system that we're going to be talking about here in a second. But is it me, or does it feel like it's been forever since we've been doing this?
Yeah, it's been a while.
How long has it been?
At least 4 months.
No, seriously. Has it been a week or 2 weeks? Because it feels like longer.
Since Tops?
Since our last show.
Oh, a couple weeks.
Couple weeks since our last show, and maybe 3 weeks since we've been at Tops. And you get used to the home field, and love being here in Tops. And now we have video. And that's awesome.
Which, by the way, I just started recording, but it's cool.
Oh, now we're on.
We're on.
Say hi, Duncan.
They'll have to.
The last time I was videoed,
Murthy, say hi. All right.
Yeah, the last time I was videotaped, there was a somebody asking for money afterwards. So I try not to be videotaped too often.
You were videotaped?
No.
Was that when you went to Bali?
You never know. Hey, Bali. Young guy, beer, boobs. Gotta love it.
They have pay-per-view. What they do is they show a little bit of the movie, and then you pay not to watch Duncan have sex.
Hey.
Yes.
No.
That's how it works.
All right. But anyways.
But I digress. All right. So here we are, and we're with Murthy, and we've got this system. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, first of all, a little bit about your background. Originally from India. You've been here, you said 28 years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you're a PhD chemist?
I'm a chemical engineer.
Chemical engineer.
Yeah.
What were you doing before you got into the beer nitrogenating business?
I worked for the brewing industry many years.
Did you?
And then I came to the Valley to work for Motorola.
Okay.
I used to be in the biotech field, and Motorola was in the, they had a foray into life sciences.
Okay.
So we were doing DNA biochips, as they would call it.
DNA biochips.
Can you tell me who my real daddy is?
I don't know if I want to digress, but...
oh, please do.
So these are little chips with, several tens of thousands of DNA molecules.
Uh-huh.
Each one interrogates a specific biomarker in a biological tissue. So the idea is you are checking with perhaps a single drop of blood how many of maybe 10,000 different genes are expressed in any given time. So maybe there is a person who is taking a medicine.
Mm-hmm.
The pharmaceutical industry is interested in this. They're coming up with new drugs, and they want to know how a potential drug candidate works on the specific gene they're after.
So it's a way of marking the variables.
Yeah.
The outliers. It's a statistical thing, right?
No, it's actually very, you're basically fishing out which genes are turned on in a palette of, 25, 30,000 different genes.
Mm-hmm.
And which are turned off, which one is, if they are turned on or, by how many folds is a certain gene is being expressed. So if there's a cancer tissue, certain normal genes are really turned up in a big way, and some are really suppressed. So it's a way to express gene expression in a massive scale.
That's awesome. I can barely wrap my brain around that. Duncan?
You are officially the smartest person at this table.
PhD means
my master's
high and deep, or
my master's degree doesn't mean shit right now. I have a feeling. You're biotech, and what got you into the beer industry?
My PhD work is in fermentation and
Uh-huh.
bioprocess engineering kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So, and my chemical engineering background prior to that is standard, pipes and tanks and reaction kinetics and that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
So it all gelled together, and beer is it's a big, as everyone understands, it's a fantastic mix of fundamental sciences,
Uh-huh.
art,
Right.
and flavors, and I mean, you name
Right.
it,
Chemical
There's,
compounds.
yeah, there's no full envelope you can put and say this is beer.
Nice.
So I do a small part of it,
Okay.
and brewers are, essentially the creativity is limitless.
Right. Right.
And I come from, a very geeky background that's really related to the aspects of science and engineering that are a lot more defined, I guess. But
Mhm.
there's a whole lot of it that's really art, and that's
Yeah.
why it's such an exciting thing.
Yeah, that's one of the things about beer that there's the I kind of break it down into 3 subsets. There's the geek, that would be you. There's the
Thank you.
The glutton, that'd be Duncan.
Oh, Duncan.
And the gourmet, I guess I'm the gourmet. So
Why are you so modest?
Yeah, really.
I'm not a geek.
Well, you're just fat as I am.
Well, you look the part, my friend.
Well, black is slimming.
Yes, that's why. That's the official color of DrinkinAZ. Black. Black is the new black. So, nitrogen as opposed to carbonation. What was it where you saw an opportunity to with all the different parts and sciences, the science aspect of beer, what made you go into that area? Where'd you find the opportunity?
Nitrogen, normal beer, carbon dioxide is natural in beer. And
It's a byproduct of yeast.
it's a byproduct of fermentation.
Right.
And in the old days, they didn't have the technology to control the carbonation and all that in a proper way. So whatever the yeast produced, some of it leaked out of the vats and tanks, and some of it they managed to plug the tank and
Right.
let it build up.
That's how I brew to this day.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and it works. But if you want to ship that beer, that's a
And
whole
you want-
different
and
story.
You want consistency.
You want consistency and in quality, and you want to be able to do the same thing twice and
Right.
have your customers expect that same quality. It becomes a very difficult thing. So modern brewing technology has really drilled this down to a science.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got 100% carbon dioxide, no nitrogen beer. In the old days, some nitrogen would naturally come in,
Okay.
but carbon dioxide is normal for beer. But in the old days, some air would go into these casks and stuff, and the oxygen is eaten up by yeast, but the nitrogen hangs around.
Okay.
And modern brewers struggle to produce that kind of taste. Now, brewing has evolved and tastes have changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the normal carbonated beer version of beers that everyone likes. But there is a romantic call
Mm-hmm.
for the old styles.
So let's back up here a little bit, because I'm aware of cask beer, but I'm not really versed in it. When you get that smooth, silky, velvety mouthfeel from cask beer, is some of that attributed to nitrogen?
I think it's because of nitrogen.
Do you?
I mean, modern brewers might actually call this, if it happened in a regular process, a contamination, almost.
Okay.
But my theory is some nitrogen is dissolved in the beer because of poor control.
Okay.
And I don't recommend you try it, brewing that way, but because you won't have consistency and there's a big risk of spoilage.
So not necessarily. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but not poor control, but the actual process of tapping a cask and pumping with a cask engine. You think that incorporates nitrogen?
It does incorporate nitrogen, but not enough.
Okay.
There is some nitrogen, and it helps. Any little bit helps.
Isn't what's the air we breathe right now is it's oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen,
Yeah,
right?
and the majority
what's the
of it-
percentage of nitrogen?
80% of air is nitrogen.
Really?
Yeah,
So most of what you're breathing right now is nitrogen, Duncan.
right.
Is that why you're full hot air?
Yeah. That's why you're fizzy.
Oh, I feel busy.
Yeah. So, if you ask me, what does nitrogen do for beer?
And we'll come back with what nitrogen does to beer on DrinkinAZ.com.
Phoenix Brewing Supply is an online retailer based in the Phoenix metro area. This online shop is geared up to give the homebrewer competitive prices on a wide selection of all of your homebrewing needs. Phoenix Brewing Supply provides quick access to a variety of hops, yeast, additives, and adjuncts, spiral fermenters, 5-star chemicals, chillers, draft equipment, plumbing, and hardware are all products you can find at the click of a button. When you can get most orders shipped within one business day, why go anywhere else? Log on to phoenixbrewingsupply.com today and receive 10% off of your first order when you register online. Phoenix Brewing Supply. What are you brewing today?
And we're back at Taste the Tops, Drinking AZ. All right, so we were talking about nitrogen and the role that nitrogen plays in beer with our guest, Murthy Tata. Murthy, go ahead and expand on that.
Now, you got to stop me if I'm going really geeky on you guys.
Oh,
here.
okay.
But, any gas, when it's dissolved in a liquid,
Mm-hmm.
under pressure,
Right?
and you release the pressure by, for example, in case of beer, when you pour it out of a keg
Mm-hmm.
or a can or a bottle, that gas is going to come out of solution,
Right?
and it's going to come out in many bubbles. Normally, some surface imperfections in the glass or something is going to set off what's called bubble nucleation. Okay?
Okay.
Bubbles really form on the surface. So if you have seen glasses, usually you see that the beer bubbles start to form at the bottom of the glass or on the surface of the glass.
Right.
Once it's formed, that bubble can trigger other bubbles to form.
Okay.
So the gas in the beer is going to come to a surface of a bubble or a surface of a glass or a dust or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to see that and start to come out of solution there.
Now, why do oils have the reverse effect on bubbles?
So
If
the
you take, 'cause you could take if you have a beer that's too carbonated, you can go like this, rub your finger on we have video now, rub your finger on your forehead and stick it in there, and the bubbles will just go, be gone.
yeah, that is probably more because you're there's two things going on. One is bubble nucleation, as they call it, which is any kind of surface imperfection, something that the liquid is coming into contact with, that's going to trigger the bubbles to form.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it is once a bubble is formed, you can collapse it, you can rupture it, and basically make it go burst.
Right.
So now, usually, oils and fats are places where the the gas likes to hang around. So the gas may actually come and sit on that and not form a bubble as much.
Oh, really?
That's one theory, anyway. The other thing is
So the grease is attracting gas,
well,
giving the gas an access point where it can go to more easily.
I think what's happening is every bubble on the surface of a bubble are these molecules called surfactants, like soap bubbles. They like to congregate around that interface of the gas and the liquid, right around the skin of the bubble. And the grease is going to disrupt, that surfactant.
Got that, Duncan?
So what I got out of that was bubbles can be burst, and I kind of felt that same way, because my wife burst my spine like 20 years ago.
Did she?
So
I haven't heard that
Yeah.
story.
no, actually,
Your wife burst your spine.
no, actually, I have a theory. Is that for every year that you're married, your wife on your
God
anniversary
kills a
night,
puppy? What?
no, your wife on the anniversary night takes out one little piece of your spine, and so eventually you end up just carrying her purse. So I used to be 7'5".
Okay.
It's true. No, I'm lying.
All right. So let's take. I took you off track, and then he took us.
I just went way left.
Yeah.
Right.
So back to nitrogen and the role of bubbles.
Yeah, let's leave aside
And
you
let's
know
take
oils
let's
for a
keep
second.
let's keep it with beer.
Yeah. So nitrogen, how bubbles form, how bubbles break, is a little bit. I mean, once you start digging into it, it can be a very complex thing. And let's leave that aside for a second. But
Did you know bubbles could be so complex?
Don Ho,
Tiny bubbles.
I mean,
In the wine.
even in soap water, if you add oil,
Uh-huh.
you will not make as much froth.
Right.
It's not as much foamy.
Right.
What I'm saying is something similar will happen even in case of beer.
Right.
Except the surface active, the surfactant molecules, the soap-like molecules in beer are actually very interesting.
Uh-huh.
There's this protein called barley lipid transfer protein
Okay.
that survives the entire brewing process. It's coming from the barley.
Okay.
That's
And that's the enemy of head, right?
no, you want that. That's really what gives beer its foam.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty cool.
I thought protein was bad for foam.
Well, there are different kinds of proteins,
Okay.
and
So I'm sorry, go back to your point. So you have this type of protein, it's called what?
barley lipid transfer protein.
Okay, it's produced.
Biologically, its role is complicated. One of the roles is it's a membrane protein. So naturally, it's on the membranes of the cell walls in the barley, and kind of like a bubble skin, if you will, you know. And when you brew it, it denatures, unfolds, and refolds, and all that. But it carries through the entire brewing process, the malting and the kilning and the brewing in the kettle, boil in the kettle,
Mm-hmm.
fermentation, everything. And that's what gives a beer its characteristic foam stability.
Okay.
Now, hops also have a surface active properties. And hops and this barley lipid transfer protein work together to really promote beer foam stability.
Okay.
That's why you see that IPAs, for instance, tend to have much better foam stability. Full-bodied beers have excellent foam stability.
But I would normally associate, low hop beers like your American Standard, your American Pilsner, quote unquote beers, as being more highly carbonated. But is it because they're compensating for that? They're more force carbonated. They're compensating for the lack of those proteins.
I think their protein levels, lipid transfer protein levels are a little lower for a different reason. For instance, high gravity brewing, and adding malt adjuncts, carbohydrate adjuncts that are not from the barley. So
rice,
corn and rice,
corn are,
they don't have much of that kind of protein.
Okay.
That's why sake or doesn't have any foam.
So consequently, they would compensate with more carbonation to.
I think the carbonation level is actually normal. I mean, about the same as any other beer. If you try to put too much carbonation, it begins to feel like a soda pop. So
Right. So when we come back, we're going to sum up this whole bubble thing a little bit, and then we're going to get into the product that's really exciting, and can't wait to drink some beer.
Sure.
Woo! Giddy up.
All right.
Tiny bubbles in the wine.
Hey, this is Dunk from the Dunk Tank. Did you know Tops Liquor has over 2,000 wines in stock from all over the world and over 2,000 spirits? There's huge selections of rum, tequila, scotch, vodka, you name it, they got it. And did I mention beer? Over 2,000 varieties of craft beer from Arizona and all over the world. So come next door to the Taste of Tops, where you can always find at least 25 very special beers on tap and hundreds of beers by the bottle. Come on down to Tops and you'll never want to leave. That is, until your wife tells you to come home.
And from Taste to Tops, we're back with Murthy Tata and the invariable, the inevitable Duncan Lee.
Some big words, George.
Yeah. We got a scientist here, so, you know,
I
got to pull some big words like watermelon and strawberry and cantaloupe out in my vocabulary.
Super califragilistic.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. So, couple questions for you. First of all, a lot of our listeners are home brewers and so forth, and I'd like to get a little practical knowledge, if I could, or at least your take on it as a scientist. What do you think that we can do as homebrewers to encourage the best possible head retention and carbonation for our beers, from your perspective?
Well, one of the things that's critical for beer foam stability happens in the mashing cycle. And during mashing, the proteins are liberated from the malt, and they go to work. Mm-hmm. The primary job that the amylases and those enzymes have to do is to break down the starches, so that the yeast can ferment and produce the alcohol.
Okay.
Other important things that are needed are breakdown of some of these proteins into amino acids.
Okay.
And the yeast is going to metabolize those amino acids and sugars to produce the various flavor compounds. Now, amino acids are produced by obviously breakdown of proteins.
Okay.
One of the proteins we do not want to break down.
You getting this, Duncan?
Yes.
One of the proteins we don't want to break down.
Yeah, one or a group of proteins that we do not want broken down are these foam-positive proteins.
Okay.
So aggressive mashing cycles tend to chew up those proteins. So it's a fine balance trying to maintain.
What do you mean by an aggressive mashing cycle? Elaborate on that so we
Well,
can get a feel for that.
Time, temperature, programming during mashing, basically.
Okay.
So like the lower possible temperature you can mash at, probably better, right?
I don't remember the
120s, right, is probably the lowest you want to go for mashing, right?
And then
You can go as high as 160.
And lower temperature is going to give you drier, more attenuated, higher alcohol beer at the end, I believe.
Right.
It's not so simple. The longer you wait, even at low temperatures, these proteins are working, and most of these enzymes have in a complex mix like that, there's concomitant what's called a protease activity, which is degradation of proteins.
So is it good to wait then?
Well, you need to optimize for specific barley strains and the kind of beer you're trying to make. All I'm saying is the mash off condition, the final mash off where you kill this activity.
Right.
When you do that is also important. The time and the temperature, how you take that progression, and then when you take that temperature up.
When you sparge, and is that what we're talking about, sparging? Because
sparging.
Then you're introducing temperature at 170 or so. So that's the point that you're talking about?
That's right, exactly.
So the time in which you choose to do that, or how long that process takes, can have somewhat of effect on.
It'll have a significant effect on, depending on the kind of beer you're trying to make. It'll totally change, your the kind of byproducts that your yeast makes. In other words, read that as the beer flavor. I'm not talking simple fermentable levels of extract. I'm talking about what kind of amino acids are made, how much of those are released, everything. In fact, the foam stability, I think, would be very difficult to control in a homebrew scenario. But yeah,
What would be some? What would be if I'm putting you on the spot here. What would be some key points to keep in mind if you're trying to maximize foam stability?
well, moderate temperatures are excellent to maintain good enzyme activity, but that enzyme activity also comes along not just for starch breakdown but also protein breakdown. So at some point you want to take that temperature up really high to inactivate all these enzymes. How long you let it stay at that low temperature and when do you spike it up to arrest that activity is what I'm talking about.
So is it advantageous to let it stay at the lower temperature for a longer time?
There's people that do multiple programs. They maintain 120 degrees for 20 minutes.
Right.
100
Step mashing.
You can step mash.
Right.
You can do a program where you're actually taking it through a curve. These are very difficult to accomplish in a controlled way in a homebrew setting. But try, experiment, and find what works for you. Now, that may not work.
That's
Exactly.
That's a cop-out answer.
I'm sorry. That's why it's
So
a
rule of thumb: longer mash time prior to introducing the higher temperature water. Is that going to increase or minimize or maximize your head retention ability?
Lower temperatures help.
Like these big words
Head
I'm using,
retention.
Adam? Lower
Temperatures, but
okay.
shorter durations. But at the same time, you do want to convert the sugar.
Right.
Convert the starches so that the yeast can actually ferment.
Right.
So I know I'm.
So we were talking before about during the break about my cream ale, and one of the things about my cream ale is that I introduce into that cream ale a alpha amylase powder.
You do, okay.
Yeah, and that's my best head of any of the beers that I make.
Really?
Yeah. So does that have something to do with what you're saying?
Usually,
Because we're getting maximum conversion.
Usually, adding amylases or other other starch breakdown.
Mhm.
Almost every one of these enzymes, depolymerizing enzymes, tend to have a concomitant protease activity, which means with the amylase, not only are you breaking down starches, but there is always some activity that's breaking down the protein also. So
it's a good thing.
it's actually an edgy thing. You lucked out.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I think you really lucked out. For instance, light beers are made by adding that kind of enzymes.
Right.
For example.
Uh-huh.
And light beers invariably have very poor foam stability.
George makes Bud Light.
No, my the cream ale is supposed to be light, and it works
Busted.
for me. I don't know.
And it would probably taste really good on nitro. So, I mean...
Exactly. I don't know
take
what
a
we're
look at-
taking from this last segment. Murthy, thanks for being a good sport, because I know
Oh,
I'm
sure.
throwing a lot at you, and it's like you said before, it's an art and a science. And as we all know, anybody here who has any beer knowledge knows that for every rule there is about beer, there is an exception to the rule.
That's right.
So it's so hard to talk about these
Yep.
things.
I
So
mean,
then-
mainstream industrial brewing
Mm-hmm.
is usually about consistency,
Right,
not necessarily creativity. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
right.
But home brewing and a lot of craft brewing is
Right.
experimentation and figuring out that, coming up with all these great
Right.
beers.
We're gonna go ahead and give this thing a shot, and we got some beer that we're gonna go ahead and
Nice.
nitrogenize.
Let's do it.
So you're listening to DrinkinAZ at drinkinaz.com.
This is Dunk from the Dunk Tank here at DrinkinAZ, and tonight I want to tell you about Blackstone Limousine. Their cars are beautiful. They have a Lincoln Town car and a Ford Excursion which seats 10 passenger. Huge sound systems, CDs, DVDs, and iPod hookups. Their services are amazing. For all occasions, So if you're a bachelor, bachelorette, birthday, weddings, proms, night outs, bar hopping, anything you need, you can contact Blackstone Limousine. Call Chris at 480-229-6954, and you can see them on the web at www.blackstonelimousine.llc.com. So ladies, get your man to take you in a Blackstone limousine today.
Da, 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 da. And we're back with DrinkinAZ and the Tonight Show at Taste the Tops. What are you guys looking at?
That's right.
Shut up.
So
Duncan.
I'm your Ed McMahon then.
Yeah, you look at me like I got 3 heads. Thanks,
You are
Ed.
no Fallon.
All right. Yes.
We're all family here.
All right. So we're at the demo portion of the show where we're going to actually take your product here and take a look at what it does. Tell me a little bit, if you can, just explain to the listeners, and you can even hold it up to the camera there if you want, what your product is all about and what it does and what the nitrogen does and the role it plays with the beer.
Sure. Firstly, I want to just say something about what nitrogen does.
Okay.
So in any gas and a liquid, when that gas comes out of solution, the big bubbles grow at the expense of small bubbles. The small bubbles are get just squished in and dissolve away in the liquid, and then that gas molecules in the liquid are going to diffuse to the surface of these big bubbles, which really grow even bigger. And then the bigger bubbles float up faster also, so they rise quickly to the top and burst. What nitrogen does is nitrogen has, number one, like 50 times lower solubility than carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Now, what I mean by that is, in a typical nitro beer, at similar pressures, you got 2.6 volumes, 2.5 volumes of carbon dioxide. Nitrogen is like 0.035 volumes. Very small amount of nitrogen in beer. But when that nitrogen comes out of solution, it comes out in extremely fine bubbles. And with NitroBrew, all those bubbles come out uniform in size. So there isn't as much small bubbles and big bubbles to start off. You got most of the bubbles are about the same size, extremely small. And carbon dioxide comes in and starts to nucleate at these tiny bubbles. The net effect is you got billions and billions of extremely small bubbles. They're so small that they actually move with the liquid currents. When when the bartender pours it in your glass, as the liquid sloshes through and swirls in the glass, these nitrogen bubbles move with the liquid. And of course, eventually all bubbles have to rise. And if you pour it in the right kind of glass, the bubbles tend to rise up through the middle, which means that the liquid has to come down near the outside, which explains why you see that beautiful cascading of bubbles in nitro-style beers.
Right.
And what NitroBrew does is actually produces a very high quality. First of all, it dissolves a lot of nitrogen, and in a one serving at a time, it reduces carbonation to the perfect, about 1.2 volumes of carbonation. And essentially, you got beautiful presentation to start off. That's the first thing that you notice when you pour beer out of a NitroBrew kettle. And when you sip that, you have that beautiful silky smooth mouthfeel, because these tiny bubbles that trap a lot of this beer roll on your palate and give you that silky smooth sensation. And the flavor perception is also different from a normally carbonated beer.
How so?
Well, because this foam is kind of blanketing it, the flavors are really in the liquid. They're not shot up your nose like over a normally carbonated beer. So the flavor perception is really, when you sip it, it volatilizes on your palate, and you kind of experience it from the back of your throat.
Okay.
Very different experience.
Okay.
So beautiful, creamy mouthfeel. First of all, a beautiful presentation in the glass, nice, creamy mouthfeel, and a modified taste.
Okay.
It really brings out the malt character and really the heavier flavors very nicely. And while presenting, the lighter, more volatile flavors from the back of your palate.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds exquisite. And Issa, our bartender, certified Cicerone that he is,
Yes.
he chose for us a Beta Pappy Van Winkle Baltic Porter at 2.25% ABV.
All right.
So, yes.
Let's do it.
And what do you think about his selection? How do you think this is going to play?
I haven't had this beer before, so
Okay.
it's a
So,
new thing for me too. I'm
new
looking
territory.
forward.
Okay, so what are we doing? Explain to the viewers, because we have viewers with the video here, what we're doing with your
Okay.
maybe hold it up, tell us a little bit about the unit, and then kind of walk us through it.
So this is the NitroBrew kettle,
Okay.
and Kate talked to Isa and had him pour the beer into it. Basically, the beer is poured into this kettle,
All right.
and we just
Our
close it.
cameraman. That's a
So-
good picture, Katie, right there.
So the NitroBrew,
Nice.
so the NitroBrew
Thanks, Ben.
system has
Uh-huh.
a Venturi system here with a valve on top. Once you close the lid,
Venturi being air going from a big area to a small area.
yeah, basically,
Carburetor.
Yeah.
I remember that from Auto Shop.
that's
No,
right.
but they do that in pools too. The Venturi system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Duncan has a pool shaped like a penis. True story. I mean, we'll get right back to it here. am I telling the truth?
Well, it is.
Yes,
But you
okay.
just
All right,
You- you
Venturi. I'm so sorry.
you just threw
Murthy, I'm
off
sorry.
the smartest man in the room with one word.
That's what we do as dumb people. That's what we do. Okay. So,
Now that's
So-
funny.
so you have a kettle with the beer in it, and you got a Venturi system.
a valve system with a
Right.
Venturi on top.
There you
Now
go.
what it does is, when nitrogen is admitted into this kettle, it accelerates that nitrogen to sonic velocity, so it really gets into the beer and also simultaneously reduces carbonation to the required amount. And the carbon dioxide that's removed is held in the headspace of this vessel.
Oh,
So normally you have a charging station like that, which is piped in with nitrogen gas,
okay.
and you hook up the NitroBrew kettle,
All right.
press into the valve, and then you open the valve and let it charge.
And so what it's doing right now is
Basically, nitrogen is going into the kettle,
forcing out the air.
forcing out some of the CO2 at
Uh-huh.
the same time. Everything is happening simultaneously.
And it's permeating all the way down into the
Yeah.
bottom of the liquid.
Right.
How do you know when to stop?
Well, when the nitrogen supply is pressure regulated, so it cannot over nitrogenate. And a quality control system is there's a little dimple in this thing, so when it's energized and infused with nitrogen, the kettle starts to spin on a
Really?
table.
Wow.
Wow. you got me on the way you said nitrogenate. You said it a different way.
Infuse is the
No,
word.
nitro. How did you say it?
Did I say? I don't know.
I think
I'm
you said
using
it
too many
you said
geeky
it
words
the correct way. Nitrogenate.
here. Nitrogenate.
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 I'm
Oh.
sorry.
If you take away anything from this show, it's nitrogenate. Thank you so much. So
All right.
when it's done, it'll actually spin like an egg. Like you can tell an egg is hard boiled or soft
Kind of
boiled.
like that. Yep.
Okay.
And you don't want any untreated beer, that you don't want a stagnant pocket of untreated beer in it.
No.
So you give it a good shake.
Okay. Pretty.
Yeah.
It's sealed.
It's all sealed,
Okay.
and it can hold very high pressures. It's designed to, to take a beating and
Nice.
safe.
Just like husbands.
So that thing is machined.
Yeah, it's a deep drawn system with some
Okay.
machining in it.
And so it's got a pretty tight tolerance on the lid and everything. So it
Everything,
stays-
yes. And the
Excellent.
Venturi system, yeah.
Excellent. Awesome.
And when you're done, there's nothing much but just to go ahead and dispense.
Well, let's do it. That's
Let's do
the
it.
exciting part.
Yes.
So let me see. I'll pour it in this
It's
guy.
like a fat kid on cake right now.
Yeah. So hold the glass. You want to hold it in front of the person you're trying to impress, and just discharge along the side of the glass.
Look at that. That thing is sealed. And you get that cascading. We say that the bubbles are pushing inward and forcing the beer down. Is that what that does?
Yep.
Beautiful.
So I don't know how good the lighting is, but I think
That is beautiful.
let me fill the rest of this beer in it.
That's awesome. One of the most beautiful things in the world is, and you can say
I
what
think
you
we
say
are-
what you will about Guinness, but one of the most beautiful things is pouring a pint of Guinness and just watching those bubbles cascade down.
Yep. Duncan,
right.
try that.
Do we need more beer?
We could do more beer.
Katie?
Yep.
Would you mind grabbing a little more beer there?
It's smooth like silk.
Yes. And this is an interesting beer. I know Isa had said that he used this on a quad, Belgian quad, and,
Yep.
and it was fantastic. And this is Baltic Porter, and it's like heavenly. Try that, Adam.
Yeah.
You get the flavors. I don't even know how to describe it. You get the fruitiness of that Baltic Porter. It's just like, all right. Well, tell me if I'm correct. Does the nitrogen bubbles capture the flavor of the beer and then it kind of releases it on the back of your tongue? Is that how it works?
Yes, exactly. And there is also some of the flavors are not volatile in the regular sense. So it does present a complex bouquet at the back of your throat, and the rest of the beer kind of washes off your palate clean.
Yeah.
So it's a nice, clean, very different beer drinking experience.
Yeah, it is. For sure. Now, what kind of feedback have you gotten from people with different styles, like IPAs? Does it work well for an IPA?
Everybody has loved whatever they tried.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people who, it also depends on the kind of IPA you're talking about. For instance, one of my favorites is Deschutes Inversion IPA. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
This is such a hard job, George.
Yeah.
This, quality of life is just terrible right now. You're sitting with good people, you're drinking beer, talking about beer.
Yep. You got
I mean-
lovely ladies fetching you beer.
So Murthy,
I know.
Murthy, I just wanted to ask you, how does the CO2 get removed then? Is it still in there, just more overtaken by the nitrogen, or?
No, CO2 is still the most significant amount of gas in the beer.
Mm-hmm.
Nitrogen just gets the process of bubbles nucleation going, and the CO2 is cut in about between a half and a third,
Okay.
and the CO2 that's removed from the beer just sits in the headspace.
Okay. So you're not necessarily removing CO2, you're just adding nitrogen.
You are removing CO2 from the beer,
Oh, okay.
so the liquid has lower amount of CO2 in it.
It's fruitier. Y'all looked at me, so I'm going to talk. It's the nitrogenated Abita.
Nitrogenated.
Thank you so much. Is fruitier than the carbonated Abita.
Okay,
That's totally my take on that.
here, let me pour a couple.
Keep talking. I interrupted you.
I can talk and do things at the same time. So.
That's for women. We leave that to the women.
That's right.
Multitasking.
Definitely,
Birthing-
definitely softer.
birthing babies.
Definitely softer on the palate.
Katie
The
needs
nitrogen.
a mic. Somebody give Katie a mic.
She'll get one in the next segment. She's actually going to rap for us.
There you go. That's a beautiful looking glass.
That is-
Katie,
yeah, it
try
is.
that.
That is beauteous.
You got to let it settle, right? That's part of the thing, right? Or do you try to consume as soon as possible? I've heard you have to let it kind of
Well,
let it settle a little bit in order to have the right experience with it.
there is no right answer, but yeah,
Matter of
whatever
preference.
works for you.
This is a good beer. This, by the way,
Yeah.
this
Abita
Abita
got that right.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah,
too
they did.
bad.
Brought
it's-
to you by the makers of Turbo Dog.
That's the first time I've ever had a Baltic Porter, though.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
they're supposed to be fruity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me top that off.
Have you ever considered becoming a bartender if a scientist doesn't work out for you?
I'm finding out that I enjoy this a heck of a lot more. I get to meet with cool people, enjoy great beers. Can't beat it.
I noticed when you're pouring, you're actually pouring down the side of the glass
Yes.
rather than straight into it.
Well, that's because we don't want to just stir up outside air into it and make
Okay.
Froth.
Make froth. That's not what we're after.
Okay.
We want to make that nitro bubbles.
Right.
So it's like
Try it out.
make froth, not love, or something like that.
Did you try
Make
the
froth, not war.
Adam? Did you do the comparison? You want to do the comparison?
I do. Two-fisted. Without?
Two-fisted till the very end. That's Kiss, by the way. Yeah. You know that?
Don't like it. The without?
No?
Don't like it.
Katie doesn't know. She's
Really?
pretending she knows.
Yep.
So Duncan, you like it. You
Like
like
it.
that beer with the
Good.
nitrogen. You don't like the beer nitrogenated.
No, it's too kind of harsh, going down a little bit.
Yeah, well, you are kind of a wuss.
I am. But I'm pretty.
Yeah.
I didn't notice a whole lot of difference in taste, but definitely you get the different mouthfeel in the way it hits
I
your
noted
palate.
a difference in taste. To me, yeah.
It's maybe slight, but not.
You see, Adam, you got to have a complex palate like mine,
Yeah.
and then you know.
I don't know anybody but yourself that labeled your palate complex.
I won a
so-
contest,
of the most complex
baby
palate.
food contest
Yeah.
at a baby shower.
Oh well, then okay,
Yeah.
got it.
I picked like 6 different baby
Enough
foods,
said.
and I was able
Enough
to
said.
tell what they were.
Enough said.
Yeah, you know how it works.
That's official.
So it just rounds out the flavors, takes out any
See,
harshness.
Yeah,
Yes.
it sure
And,
does. Takes out the edges.
You just looked like you were doing the conga.
Yeah. Yeah.
Duncan, care to comment?
No. Well, this has been very interesting.
It's almost kind of milky
Yes.
the way
Yes.
the nitrogen.
Yes. Large
Hits it.
and milky.
I don't know about beer and milk, but I'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Awesome.
I think we got another friend of the show. What do you think, George?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Murthy, tell us what's the end game here. You're looking to get with. I know Taste of Tops has incorporated your system.
Yes,
And-
and we, it's
How-
still very new. We
Uh-huh.
have probably started, really offering it for sale for about a month.
Okay.
It's admit it, it's a revolutionary concept in beer dispense.
Are you looking to
so
take this thing national?
We are going to take it national down the road. I think our pricing is maybe approachable for some very serious home enthusiasts, but
Okay.
maybe it's priced a little high.
Are you gonna go ahead? Go ahead. Maybe.
So we wanna bring it, bring economies of scale and really offer it for home use also down the road. But right now our primary target is still premium bars and restaurants.
Okay. In this pitcher size that you have, are you looking to go with a larger pitcher? Any very variable sizes?
We have tooling for multiple sizes, but this
Okay.
is the largest volume we expect. Depending on what the market demands, it's very easy for us to scale it as needed. We have all
Okay.
the manufacturing set up.
Excellent.
Okay.
And if somebody wanted to find out more about your product and get a hold of you and maybe buy it or talk to you about it, how would they do that?
Sure, they can order it online, and they can first of all visit us on NitroBrew.com. Check it out. There's a lot of information. We have a place where there's some blogs. We have a place where various bartenders can post their creative ideas. A forum for sharing on Facebook. Please, this is a small company, a new concept. We really need everybody's support. Even if you don't buy it, please jump on our Facebook page, write on our wall, follow us on Twitter, share our tweets, write something. Please, we want you to engage with us. We are really excited. Everybody that has seen it is excited. We really want to take it to the next level.
Right. Well, I could see this being something that we would put up on drinkinaz.com.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking out for the hometown guy, you know.
Cool. Thank you.
And it's a product that, you know, I'm excited about. I was excited about it when I talked to you the first time that I met you. Duncan's been telling me about this, and now that I've had a chance to actually try it, I'm hooked.
I've been your cheerleader.
Yes.
I know, Duncan. Thank you so much.
No pom-poms, but I've been cheerleading for you.
Thank
I don't
you.
know. We'll talk later about how many I have to help you sell before I can get one for my house, because that'd be amazing. Wouldn't that be great as a home brewer, Adam, to be able to you could make your beer and not have to worry about how it was carbonated.
Yeah.
And then you could run it through this system. And
You could almost, I mean, you could really just do it right after primary's done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, there's a whole bunch of other
that'd
stuff.
be amazing.
Throw it right in, test
That would be
it out
amazing.
right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other applications that I haven't even mentioned, but you could even just use, instead of nitrogen, feed the charging station carbon dioxide, and you can make your own sodas. You can make
Yeah.
Cream soda.
cream
and-
sodas, and,
yeah.
you know, the favorite in our house is a ginger-based soda that I make. And,
Oh, yeah?
yeah, it's...
What other application? Go ahead, throw it out at us.
Well, you know,
Soda
the
and-
ginger soda is, you know, like a 50% pear juice, and we have these various essential oils. We put, you know, flavorings, ginger flavor, a pinch of lemon, and carbonate, and serve. It's just fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming down and spending time with us. Duncan, do you have anything to add before we go off on our way here?
No, because I think Murthy's actually going to go up to the bar and see about using the system here on a few beers for people.
And give some shirts away, right?
Yeah, and they're going to get some shirts away, so I'm going to
Drinking
jazz up the
drinking
crowd.
Drinking AZ shirts.
Yes, I can
Yes.
see the crowd. They're starting to froth right now. It's very exciting. I'm going to get them excited.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
All right.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we got people like fighting their way over here. We got to kind of hold them back.
Or they're going
so-
the other way.
That's okay.
You
So-
scared them, Duncan.
So, for Duncan Lee and Adam
yes,
Wallace,
I'm here.
Katie Krishner,
Yep.
and Murthy Tata, this is George Lindblom with DrinkinAZ, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Well, I was dropping off the top when she jarred and the drive shaft broke. Started pumping up the brakes, saw 'em go in a big cloud of smoke. To keep her upright, I knew I had to do my best. Against a runaway bomb they call the Nitro Express.